Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today we're doing another part. This will be 213 of our Planet Zoo mod spotlights. When we take a look at some of the wonderful mods people are making and use them to talk about some of the wonderful biodiversity that we share our world with. So today we've got quite an interesting assortment. We've got a couple fish, we've got a couple remasters from back in the day, which I'm quite excited to talk about. We've got an extinct animal, and we got a couple, subspecies, and we got a really cool eagle that we're going to talk about too at the end of the video, so that's quite interesting. But yeah, we're going to be starting off, we like to start off with our fishies first. So first, sorry. So first up, we're going to be starting off with Jay Quaddix, who's given us the Aphara cichlid, also known as the dogtooth cichlid. These guys are a small species of cichlid from Lake Malawi in East Africa, where they are typically found in more rocky habitats. So this one, I believe, is a male, so you can see the female over there. So the different colours. So the genus name roughly translates as dogtail cichlid, hence the common name, which is Cynotilapia aurifa. And they get this name, which just describes their sharp, conical, unicuspid teeth that is unique to the genus of Lake Malawi and the species flock there. The Mbuna, or as their other name, the Mbuna, prefers a pH range of about 7.5 to 8.5 and a temperature range of about 23 to 27 degrees Celsius. So the Aphara cichlid has an elongate body with vertical blue and black bands. However, there are many different colorations depending on the region the fish is from. For example, the male fish from Kumbe, which is also spelled with a K, or Kobwe, kind of spelt, shown shown here, because this is the female, apparently. The population from Jowl Reef shows no yellow on the body, but a solid yellow dorsal fin. Other populations have no yellow highlights, and males can all grow to about 10 centimeters in length. So we'll have a look back at the male, see if we can spot him again. He's got to be over here somewhere. There he is. That's the male. So this one, you can see it's got no yellow on the back there, so it's kind of referenced one of those populations. Females usually being smaller. Like most other cichlid species in the Lake of Malawi, these guys are mouth brooders, so they typically will have the eggs in their mouth. And then males will defend territories in their caves within rock piles and feed on algae and other microfauna from these rocks. And females will congregate in midwinter and feed on the plankton. And there are lots and lots and lots of different colour variations as you can get. There's the Kumbe variation. This one I don't think is one of that, but there are a lot of different variations. The Lake Malawi cichlids are so interesting because there's so many different species and so many different colour variations. I could honestly do a deep dive on them, but I'm not going to do that now because we're trying to focus on these couple species that we're going to be talking about. But in terms of the aquarium care, they are aggressive and quite territorial fish, and they should only be kept in species-only tank or a mixed Mbuna tank, so mixed with other different species in terms of other cichlids. When mixing is often better, it's better to avoid similar-looking species, so try and mix it with something that looks quite different. A common practice as well is to keep one male with several females, as Apharia tend to be polygamous harem breeders, and the tank arrangements should provide some open space but have plenty of hiding spots and shelters. So if you're ever going to keep that fish, that's kind of the first thing I'd say to you in that regard. So that's the Aphara cichlid, another one done by Jay Quaddix. We've got another cichlid coming up. This is another one done by Jay Quaddix as well. A bit of a cichlid day this seems to be. I think this one has babies, because I didn't intend to breed them, but they don't really have different babies, but we'll have a look over here anyway. Is there any in the water? It's got to be one in the water. There it is. So here is the female, so we'll have a look at the male next. So this is the ruby red peacock cichlid. Scientific name is Alocara rusens, or the ruby red peacock. These are a type of cichlid, also from Lake Malawi. The usual size for the fish is about 10 to 12 centimeters, so a little bit bigger. They have a pH range of similar, 7.5 to 8.5. They have a similar, slightly cooler temperatures. They prefer 24 to 26 degrees. and they are from Africa, quite peaceful species, and they're territorial to other fish. So in terms of their food and feeding, the species is omnivore, and they prefer quite high quality meaty foods. A stable diet in captivity would be fish flakes, good ones too, and cichlid pellets, enriched with vitamins. Also brine shrimps, krill, minor shrimp, and bloodworms would be good. Feed small portions 2 or 3 times a day to ensure that food is consumed to maintain that water quality. And avoid feeding fatty or mammalian proteins like beef heart, as this can cause digestive issues. So the natural habitat, they are from Lake Malawi in Africa, and the ruby red peacock inhabits sandy bottom regions near rocky outcrops, and their environment is generally characterized by clear oxygen-rich water with stable parameters, providing ideal conditions for foraging and breeding, and replicating these conditions in aquariums makes sure that that really helps with their health. In terms of sexing, they are quite straightforward to sex. Males display vibrant orange colours to red colorations, while females have metallic blue or white accents. And females, in contrast, are dark grey or brown, and it's best to keep one male with several females to prevent hybridization and minimise aggression. And avoid mixing different Allocara species to maintain genetic purity. So that's a female there. Let's see if we can spot the male. Let's see if we've got one over here. Here he is. So you can see he's quite blue. Really, really beautiful. In terms of breeding, they are maternal mouth brooders, very similar to the alpha cichlids. During breeding, the male will establish a territory and perform a vibrant courtship display to attract females. And after spawning, the female collects the eggs in her mouth, and she incubate them for approximately 18 to 21 days. And the male does not participate in rearing the young at all. And once the fry are released, they can feed on newly hatched brine shrimp or finely crushed flakes in captivity, and provide a separate breeding or grow-out tank to improve the survival of the fry and minimize predation. With good care, they can live about 5 to 8 years, as long as you maintain a good water condition and stable diet and all that stuff. In terms of they're a vibrant and peaceful cichlid from Lake Malawi, and they're quite they do thrive in quite well constructed aquariums. And they're peaceful to other species, though you should try and avoid keeping them with members of the same genus or aggressive species or boisterous species. But yeah, they tend to do well as long as you give those parameters and stuff like that. So that's quite cool. Oh, is they still breeding? Is the breeding still on? No, they should have. It was just a notification that I think might have just been old. But anyway, we're going to carry on. So we've got here, we've got one of our remasters. So I'll go back. These two were done by Jay Aquatics. Really, really cool to get some more fish. I remember the big leaf episodes with the fish, and we had lots and lots of fish. But it's nice to get some fish back. But here up, we got another remaster. This is a remaster done by Narwhal. We have got the helmeted guinea fowl. So this is one that's been looking quite good for a while. So the helmeted guinea fowl, or Nimbuna meleagus, I believe you say that, is the best known of the guinea fowl bird genus Nubelidae, and the only genus member of Numidia, which is native to Africa. So they're found mainly south of Sahara and have been widely introduced as a domestic species into West Indies, North America, Colombia, Brazil, Europe, and Australia. So in terms of when they were described, they were formerly described by Carl Linnaeus in 1758, and he called them the new genus in 1764, and he actually called them Phasicus megalaris, which was, most pheasants. Then they were called Nibaria, which is actually Latin for North Africa. In the early days of European colonization, the native wild turkey was actually considered confused with the species quite a bit. So that's kind of interesting as well. And there's 9 different recognized subspecies, but I'm not sure how true they actually are. But anyway, we're going to carry on. So these guys are quite a large bird. They are large, 53 to 58 centimeters, or 21 to 23 inches in length, with a round body and a small head. They weigh about 1.3 kilograms, and their body plumage, you can see, is kind of a grey-black speckled with white, and like under guinea fowl, they have an unfeathered head, which is decorated with a dull yellow or reddish bony knob, and also bare skin with red, blue, or black hues. Their wings are quite short and rounded, and they've got short tails as well. And there have been various subspecies described based on variation and stuff like that. but really it could just be population variation and stuff like that. In terms of their breeding and ecology, they are quite gregarious. They form flocks outside of the breeding season, typically of about 25 birds. They also roost communally. They also particularly well suited to consuming massive quantities of ticks, which might otherwise spread Lyme disease, so they're quite a useful animal, actually. These birds are also territorial and prone to run rather than fly when alarmed, and like most galliform birds, they are short-lived, explosive flight, that relies on gliding rather than covering long distances. So they tend to only fly really to get away from predators and things like that. So we'll have a look at another one, because why not? We've got an albino one as well, but we'll have a look at that one later so you can see some differences there. They can walk up to 10 kilometers or more a day, and their bodies are well suited for running, and they're remarkably successful at maintaining dynamic stability over rough terrain at speed, and they make loud, harsh calls when disturbed. Their diet typically consists of a variety of animal and plant foods. During the non-breeding season, they'll consume tubers, corns, and seeds, lots of agricultural weeds, as well as spilling from agricultural crops. During the breeding season, they'll eat a lot of invertebrates, with up to 80% of their diet being invertebrates, particularly arthropods like beetles. In guinea fowl, they're equipped with strong claws to scratch the loose soil for food, much like domestic chickens, though they seldomly unroot growing plants as they do. And they have no spurs as well, and may actually live up to 12 years in the wild. So males will often show aggressive towards each other and partake in aggressive fighting, which may leave the other male bloodied and otherwise injured. They appear to make themselves a lot more fearsome by raising their wings upwards from their sides and bristling their feathers across the length of their bodies. They make also a rush towards their opponent with a gaping beak. And the nest is well hidden, generally underlined scrape, when they have a clutch of about 6 to 12 eggs. As we see here, looks really, really cute. Little cute little guys. The female will incubate for about 26 to 28 days. Nests generally that contain a larger amount of eggs are generally believed to be a result of more than one hen on the nest, as eggs are large and they can and an incubating bird cannot realistically cover that much area, significantly more than a normal clutch. In terms of reproduction, they are seasonal breeders. Summer is the peak breeding season, and winter no activity takes place. In terms of habitats as well, they tend to like warm, fairly dry and open habitats with scattered shrubs and trees, and such as savanna and farmland. And they are often domesticated, and the species is also sold in Western supermarkets. Feral populations have descended from domestic flocks, but can now be found in West Indies, North America, Australia, and Europe. So quite a wide range there of wild flocks. And you get some in New Zealand too, which is quite interesting. So that's one of our remasters done. That's done by Narwhal. We'll have a look at this little cheeky white one for a look there. That's really, really interesting. Nice variation. So next up, we have got another remaster. This one's done by Monsoon, who's gone back and done a lot of remasters and tinkering with their older mods. But we've got one that's always been one I've always really liked. We've got the Gaur, so a really, really cool animal. So the Gaur, or the Indian bison, these guys are a large bovid native to India and Southeast Asia, and they're listed vulnerable, with their global population being no more than 21,000 mature individuals. They're actually considered the largest species of wild cattle, so it's quite interesting as well. Their name, Garo, means white, yellowish, reddish as well, and also Garaminda means is kind of water buffalo. And their name in Hindi means fair-skinned, fair, or white. They're originally called Bison Gaurus by Charles Hamilton Smith in 1827, but they were then put into the Bos. So Bos is the genus of cows. There are 3 subspecies recognized, the dominant one from India, Nepal, and Bhutan, one from Myanmar, and the other one from Malaysia, but they're largely not really recognized because they're just based on small visual variations as well. And they are closely related to the Coelpre and the Bantang as their closest living relatives. In terms of what they look like and how amazing they are, I got a really big male because I wanted to show off their size. So they are the largest living bovid. They have very strong and massive built animals, and they have a high convex ridge on their forehead between the horns that protrudes anteriorly, so up. They have a prominent ridge on their back with large ears. And in old bulls, the hair becomes very thin along the back. The adult male, as you can see, is dark brown, approaching black in very old individuals. And the upper part of the head from around the eyes and nape and neck is ashy grey or dirty white, with the muzzle also being quite a pale colour. And the lowest parts of the legs having a tan there. And then you can see the females here that are more brown. They're paler in some instances. It can be a bit more reddish as well. And they have more marks and more marked in groups inhabiting dry and open areas. Their tail is shorter than a typical oxen, typically only reaching their hocks. And they have distinct ridge along their shoulders to the middle of their back, and their shoulders may get up to about 12 centimeters higher than the rump. And the ridge is actually caused by the great length of the spines of the vertebrae, as the forelimb and the trunk is compared to those of the loins. And the hair is quite short and fine and glossy, and you can see they almost look like bodybuilder cows because they've got really, really short hair that kind of, accentuates their muscles. And the gaur is very, very big. So the gaur has a head to body length of about 250 to 330 centimeters, or about 8'2" to 10'10", with a 70 to 105 or 28 to 41 inch long tail, and is about 142 to 220 centimeters, or 56 to 87 inches at the shoulder. And they average about 168 centimeters, or 5'6" in females for the shoulder height, and about 188 or 6'2" in males. So the muscular hump is just behind the shoulder, and the average male is typically just under 200 meters, or 6 foot, not 200 meters, 200 centimeters, or about 6'7" tall. And the male's girth in midsection is averages about 277 centimeters, about 9 feet, with males being about 1/4 larger and heavier than the females. Body mass does range quite a bit, so the body mass for a female is between 440 to 1,000 kilograms, or between 970 to 2,200 pounds. And females get between 588 to 1,500 kilograms, or between 1,296 to 3,307 pounds in adult males. And that seems to be pretty much the same across most of their range. There's some small variations but across their range, but they do generally get to about that size. Nothing too different there. We'll have a look at the male because he's rather beautiful. In terms of their distribution and habitat, the gaur historically occupied most of mainland South and Southeast Asia and included, Nepal, India, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, and China. Though their range is quite restricted, they are considered extinct in Malaysia and Sri Lanka. At the moment, they are typically confined to evergreen forest or semi-evergreen and moist deciduous forests, but also live in deciduous forest areas at the periphery. The gaur habitat is actually characterized by large, relatively undisturbed forest tracts, hilly terrain, and can be between elevations of between 1,500 to 1,800 meters. Availability of water and the abundance of forage in the form of grasses, bamboo, shrubs, and trees. The apparent preference for hilly terrain may actually partly due to early conversion of most of the plains and low-lying habitats to pastures. So they might prefer lowland areas, but the upland areas is what all they've got at the moment. But low-lying areas seem to comprise of kind of optimal habitat. In Nepal, the gaur population was actually estimated to be about 250, 350 in the mid-1990s, and a couple national parks, and then they've increased that to 368 animals as of 2016. The Indian population is believed to be about 12,000 to 22,000 in the mid-1990s. Major populations can be found in some big reserves around the place. Bhutan, they are found on the southern foothills. There's a few gaur in Bangladesh, but their main population is in Cambodia at the moment. And in Cambodia, they actually declined quite a bit, and there was up to 1,000 individuals surveyed, and that's in that population there. In 2020, they're believed to actually rapidly decline, and as of 2020, they seem to have been, only about 30 or so individuals. But at the most part, they did used to live in all these countries, but in most places they've just declined due to hunting and habitat destruction. So really only really small populations, or they may have got locally extinct. The only really big places that has very decent populations is India, but also China. They used to have them back during the late Neolithic, and there's only believed to be now between 600 to 800 individuals, and they're considered locally extinct in places like Sri Lanka. So in terms of their behaviour, they are considered diurnal. in areas where they're not disturbed by humans. So they typically come out during the day, but in areas where there's humans, they tend to become more nocturnal. In central India, they are most active during the night, and are really seen at the open after 8 o'clock in the morning. But during the dry season, they congregate and remain in small areas, dispersing into the hills with the arrival of the monsoon. And while they depend on water drink, they do not seem to bathe or wallow. In January and February, they tend to live in small herds of 8 to 11, one of which is a bull, but in April or May, more bulls may join the herd for mating, and individual bulls may move from herd to herd, each mating with many cows. In May or June, they leave the herd and may form herds of bulls only, or live alone, and herds will wander 2 to 5 kilometers, or about 1.2 to 3.1 miles each day, and each herd has a non-exclusive home range, and sometimes herd may actually get to about 50 or more. So we'll have a look at the female, because we want to get a chance to have a look at the other variation there. Gawa herds are typically led by an old female, the matriarch, and adult males may be solitary. During the peak of the breeding season, unattached males wander widely in search of reproductive females. No serious fighting between males has been recorded, but with size being a major factor. So the biggest one always wins, pretty much. They also have a mating call of a clear, resonant tones that carries for up to 1.6 kilometers, or about a mile. They also have a whistling snort, such as alarm call, and a low cow-like moo. In some areas where human disturbance in India that is minor, they are very timid and shy despite their great size, and when alarmed, they crash into the jungle at surprising speeds. However, when there is appearance of humans in Southeast Asia and South India, they actually can be quite aggressive to people. They're frequently known to go into fields and graze among domestic cattle, sometimes killing them in fights, and they may charge without provocation, even especially during summer months, with the intense heat and parasitic insects making them a bit more short-tempered. And to warn other members of the herd of danger, they will actually whistle to be like, "Oh no, the whistle!" Gotta make sure deal with the threat. In terms of their feeding ecology, they are grazers and browsers. They are mixed feeders, so they tend to eat mostly the upper portions of plants, such as leaf blades, stems, seeds, and flowers of species. In places they've observed feeding about 32 different species of plants. They feed on the fruit of elephant apple, with a high preference for leaves, herbs, young shoots, and flowers. Food preferences also change during the season. So in winter or monsoon season, they'll feed on fine and fresh true grasses, such as legumes, like tick clovers, but also browser and leaves such as kavi, Indian boxwoods, mallow-leaf crossberry, and East Indian screw tree, and the chasti tree. Though in summer they'll also feed on the bark of the teck or fruit or golden shower tree, and the bark of the cashew tree. They spend most of the day feeding, typically observed eating about 6:30 to 8:30 in the mornings, and between 17:30 and 18:30 in the evenings. During the hottest hours of the day, they tend to rest in the shade. They actually also, when there are times of shortages, they will debark trees, and the minerals and trace elements needed for their nutrition, for their diet as well. They may also turn to available browse species and fibrous tree bark in the summers, when green grass dries up. High concentrations of calcium has been reported in tree bark, so they actually may satisfy their needs as well. Long-term survival and conservation of these herbivores depend on the availability of preferred plant species, so that's why protecting historically preferred habitats for gaur has been quite significant in conserving them. And yeah, as I mentioned, tree bark has calciums and phosphorus and stuff, which is quite important in the building of animals. That's a lot of stuff that, they need calcium to grow their bones, and phosphorus to help their immune systems and all that. So in terms of their babies, because we've got to have a look at the cute little babies. Look at how cute you are. So sexual maturity in gaurs is reached about their second or third year. Breeding will take place year-round, but typically peaks during December and June. Females only have one calf, maybe rarely two, after a gestation period of 275 days, which is a few days less than domestic cattle. And calves are typically weaned at about 7 months of age, and the life cycle of a gaur, they typically live for about 30 years in captivity, so it would be probably a little bit shorter in the wild. Have a look back at the male again, because, we all like to look at him, because he's rather beautiful, isn't he? In terms of their natural predators, due to their size and power, they have few natural predators, though Leopards, dhole packs, and large crocodiles will sometimes attack unguarded calves or unhealthy animals, but only tigers and saltwater crocodiles have been known to kill adult gaur. However, the habitat overlap between tigers and gaur not tigers, gaurs and saltwater crocodiles has kind of decreased because both species have been hunted quite readily, so there's less places where these guys would actually meet. A crocodile would likely be a mature adult to kill a healthy adult gaur at more than 12 feet long or 300 kilograms. But tigers are their main predators at the moment. They hunt young or infirm gaur, but have been killed healthy bulls up to about 1,000 kilograms. When confronted by a tiger, the adult members of a gaur herd often form a circle surrounding the vulnerable young and calves and sheltering them from the big cat. And the tigers rely on ambush attacks when taking on prey as large as gaur. They will almost always abandon the hunt if detected or met in the manner. A herd of gaur in Malaysia actually encircled a calf killed by a tiger to prevent it from approaching the carcass. Needless to say, they were very large. They're much, much larger than a tiger, so they would be quite a formidable opponent. Though in terms of threats, they are faced by things such as poaching for trade, but also opportunistic hunting and also habitat destruction and things like that. So they face quite a few threats. I believe they are considered in danger. No, they're considered vulnerable. Pretty similar in that regard. They are legally protected in pretty much wherever they're found. And they actually managed to clone them, which was quite interesting. So on 8th of January 2001, the first cloned gaur was born at the Trans-Over Genetics in the Sonoric Center in Iowa. The calf was born significantly taken to term by a domestic cow, surrogate mother, and while healthy at birth, the calf died of a common dystemia, which happened within 48 hours of it being born. But it's actually quite a common thing in cattle. And it was most likely unrelated to cloning. So if that didn't happen, it most likely would have gone on to be an adult, gaur. So that's quite cool. And they are considered quite important in popular culture. The gaur is the mascot for the 54th Infantry Division in the Indian Army. They're considered the state of, football teams and stuff like that. They're quite a important thing. The Red Gaurs is actually an extreme right-wing paramilitary organization active in Thailand during the 1970s. So that's another, the Red Gaurs. It's a really cool name. But yeah, really, really cool species. I'm quite a big fan of this gaur, and I'm glad it got a remaster because gaurs are just so cool animals. They got bodybuilder bodies. They're so awesome. But anyway, we're going to move on. Next up, we got an extinct animal by Great Cakes Mod. So this monsoon, Great Cakes Mod has knocked out of the park yet again with a really, really cool extinct species. We've got Catiphelus. So let's have a look at these guys. This is Catiphelus. It was an extinct genus of felid that lived in Kenya during the early Miocene and is notable for its dental features, which is considered intermediate between basal and modern cats, and contains the single species Catiphelus nightingaleae. And the holotypes, in so far only fossil of this species, it's only known from one fossil, was discovered in the Chalidee of Calidore, which is part of the Lodidoc Formation, and the site dates from between 17.5 to 0.0, so between 17 to 16 million years ago. It is located in West Turkana, Kenya. The type specimen itself is a left mandibular fragment containing teeth P1 or P1 to molar 1. So P1, I believe, is incisor or something like that to molar 1. Described in 2018, it's the second felid with transitional traits known in East Early Miocene Africa, alongside the slightly older Acylophelus. And after its appearance during the late Bulgarian Age or Bulgarian Age, there is no fossil record of any African felids until the appearance of Macharodus at about 12 million years ago. So there's a big cat gap in Africa. So these guys are quite early in that regard, which is interesting as well. Very interesting early felid. In terms of the scientific name comes from the combination of the Swahili word Kali, which means intermediate, and Felis, which just means cat. So it's the intermediate cat. And the species name honors Andrew Nightingale, who was a supporter of geological and paleontology research in Kenya. So it's to honor him. In terms of its description, these guys were a smaller cat. They were somewhat smaller than a caracal, so not huge. They were bigger than, your domestic cats, but nowhere near as big as a caracal, maybe like ocelot-sized. And therefore, its name suggests it's intermediate in size between the smaller Acylophelus and the larger Namophilus and Dynamophilus. Its mandible was quite gracile, and its P4 and M1 slightly overlapping. And it has a very tall protocornoid, but a small paracornoid. And it's kind of the different teeth as well. So the different changes in the teeth, and because you can actually tell a lot about mammals and their taxonomy from their teeth, because their teeth is kind of what a lot of paleontologists and zoologists use to diagnose different mammals, especially when you've got only teeth to go off. So the anatomy of their teeth, they seem to be intermediate between your modern Felis grade cats, so more like modern cats, and the basal Pseudolaris cats, so things like earlier cats such as Pseudolaris and those kind of early cats from the early Miocene and late Oligocene, places like that. Catzifelis showcases several features differentiating from other felids there. It's definitely more robust than Acylophelus. And in comparison to Dynamantophelus, it has a taller M1 protocornoid relative to that as well. And a lower mandible as well. So it's definitely different and you can tell it apart. Really cool reconstruction here as well, considering it's only known from a mandible. This allowed, Great Cakes mod to really come up with something interesting. And I like you got the melanistic variation as well. Let's have a look at the cute little baby too. Let's have a look at the cute little baby. Rather cute. So in terms of its ecology, the paleo-environment of Killadur was likely wooded, but relatively open. Quite similar to similar age sites near Lake Victoria, which is actually unlike those places because it was actually more forested back then. Other carnivorans found in the site include the bear dog Sinellis macrodon, viverids such as Conchenia, and the large mustelid. They shared their habitat with a variety of thyramid rodents, different types of primates such as Afropithecus, proboscideans such as Prodinotherium and Proanacthus, rhinoceroses, targurids, and various quite a unique assemblage of suids, which includes pigs, and giraffids, which include Giraffanocarpi. This is hyenodonts, Ansiopar, Acela hyenodon, and Hanellalaris were also present. And the Logdoc formation shows clear regional endemism among these various groups, and the first appearance of very typical Eurasian taxa, such as Dinotherium and Poractus as well. Those were actually considered European taxa. These are kind of their origins in Africa, so that's quite interesting. So yeah, very interesting site, and very interesting guy here. Very big fan, and I like how Great Cakes always does a great job of reconstructing these extinct mammals. I gotta say, they're gonna be one of my favorite reconstructions of these animals because they have a good understanding of how modern animals work, and then create something that's distinct enough to make it look like the extinct animal. And I think she does a really good job with these kind of things. So yeah, Great Cakes, always a great one there. So next up, we've got Sky Polaris, and then the last mod's going to go back to, of course, Great Cakes. We've got here the Arabian leopard. Let's have a look at these guys. Damn it. Mika. So let's have a look at the Arabian leopard. So the Arabian leopard, or Pandus namur, these guys are actually the smallest leopard subspecies, and they were described in the 1830s and are native to the Arabian Peninsula, and it was widely distributed in the rugged hills and mountain terrain until about 1970. Though today, sadly, their population is actually quite fragmented, and they've declined considerably. In 2008, an estimated 45 to 200 individuals lived in 3 isolated populations, were restricted to the Western Saudi Arabia, Oman, and Yemen. However, as of 2023, it's estimated that about 100 to 120 remain, with 70 to 84 mature individuals in Oman and Yemen, and is possibly extinct, sadly, in Saudi Arabia. And they are continuing to decrease, quite sadly. So these guys were originally described by Wilhelm Herbich and Christian Goldwyn Ehrenberg in 1830 from a leopard found in Arabia. And in early 1990s, there was actually a phylogeographic analysis carried out in tissue samples found from Asian and African leopards. and another one was provisionally grouped with them, and Tishushasa was not available. And genetic analysis suggests that the single wild leopard from Saudi Arabia was actually more closely related to African leopards. But molecular biologists tentatively proposed a group of Sinai leopards within the African leopards, as again tissue samples were not available at the time. So in terms of their description, the Arabian leopard's fur varied from pale yellow to a deep golden, tawny to grey colour and patterned with rosettes, as you can see here. Males had a total length of about 182 to 203 centimetres, or 72 to 18 inches long, include a 70 to 85 centimetre or 30 to 33 inch tail, and weigh about 30 kilograms. Females are a bit smaller, 160 to 192 centimetres, or 63 to 76 inches long, with a 67 to 79 or 29 to 31 inch long tail, and they weighed about 20 kilograms and were considered the smallest leopard subspecies, but considered the largest cat in the Arabian Peninsula. So in terms of distribution and habitat, their geographical range is poorly understood, but is thought to have been limited to the Arabian Peninsula, including the Egyptian Sinai Peninsula. They lived in mountainous, upland, and hilly steppe areas, but seldom moved to open plains, desert, or coastal lowlands. And during the late 1990s, since the late 1990s, they haven't been recorded in Egypt, and actually one individual was killed in Elba Protected Area in 2014. But in the late 1960s, they were widely distributed across the mountains of both coasts of the Red and Arabian Sea. And in Saudi Arabia, their population is estimated to be about 90%, decreased by about 90% since the beginning of the 19th century. Of the 19 reports attained from 1998 to 2003, only 4 of the confirmed included sightings from the Hizaj Mountain and 3 in the Azure Mountains. And there has been some kind of finding there. And although they're officially protected, their remaining range is actually not encompassed by protected areas. So the areas that they're living at the moment are not protected. In the United Arab Emirates, they were first spotted in 1949 by Winfield Telschke in Jabal Hafet. The exact status of the leopard in the country is unclear. They're either extinct or very rare in the eastern region. In Oman, they have been recorded in the Hajar Mountains, with the largest confirmed subpopulation being in the Dohofa Mountains in the southeast of the country, with 17 individuals being caught on camera. And the home range of the reserve is estimated to be about 350 square kilometres for males and 250 square kilometres for females. And they're considered to be best habitat for the leopard in the country. So it's good that they're there, because it's where they're, good habitat for them. In Yemen, they are found to have formerly ranged in all mountainous areas of the country, including the western and southern highlands, but likely they're considered rare or close to extinction due to local persecution and depletion of wild prey. And there's a small population in Israel's Negev desert, estimated about 20 individuals, but they were still hunted as well. The last wild leopard in the Negev desert was actually found. It was sighted near Sebra Borgak in 2007, and the last leopard in the northern Arab Valley was sighted in 2011, so they sadly declined quite a bit. In terms of their ecology and behaviour, they're not too distinct from other leopards. We'll have a cute little baby, because why not? Arabian leopards are predominantly nocturnal, but sometimes can be seen in daylight. They seem to concentrate on small to medium-sized prey, usually storing carcasses of large prey in cave or lairs, but not in trees. Scat analysis reveals that they eat things like Arabian gazelle, Nubian ibex, Cape hare, rock hyraxes, porcupine, Ethiopian hedgehog, small rodents, birds, and insects. And since local people reduce ungulate populations quite a bit, they are forced to alter their diet to feed on smaller prey and also livestock. And they also will eat like the livestock such as goats, sheep, donkey, and also they'll even eat young camels. Information on their ecology and behaviour is quite limited. Leopard in the Judean desert reported to have come in heat in March, and they have a gestation period of about 13 weeks. Females will give birth to two to four cubs in a cave amongst boulders or in a burrow. And they're born with their eyes closed, that open about day 4 to 9. Captive-born Arabian leopards emerge from their den for the first time at the age of about a month, and cubs are weaned at about 3 months, but they remain with their mother for about 2 years. So in terms of the threats, we kind of mentioned a lot of those threats. 3 confirmed separate subpopulations with fewer than estimated 200 leopards said, but their threats are mainly habitat loss, degradation, and fragmentation, prey depletion caused by unregulated hunting, trapping for the illegal wildlife trade, and retaliatory killings in defense of livestock. So they've declined dramatically because of all these regions, because a lot of people think, these leopards kill their livestock, and, they get them back. In addition, hunting for them species, hunting leopard prey species, the hyrax and ibex are done by local people, and habitat fragmentation is really affected their survival. Another reasons is political satisfaction or pride, because, I've got to kill a leopard, I'm such a big guy, I'm so good. And also traditional medicines. And they've also sometimes killed when eating poison carcasses that are intended for Arabian wolves or striped hyenas. But the leopard population seems to have decreased the national prey species as well, so they prey on livestock. So they've got nothing to eat, they've got the livestock, and then they get killed for the livestock. But another big issue as well, because of these isolated subpopulations that are all kind of inbreeding, they are at much more risk of inbreeding, which is a really, really big issue as well. See if we can spot, is that the female? Because we weren't looking at the female. Have a look at you. But there is luckily some conservation efforts going in to help these guys. They're trying to radio track them and try and see them on videos and things like that, trying to study them and there's also detailed studies looking into their distribution and habitat requirements to try and, work out what they need and what kind of protections they need. An accessible conservation strategy must promote awareness of the importance of leopard conservation as well. Revenue from sources such as hunting rights or ecotourism, services like roads or school employment in protected areas would encourage them to help these leopards as well. So hopefully they're trying to always create these kind of efforts to try and help the leopard, compensation for killed livestock and things like that. So really trying to help there. And also in terms of captivity, the first Arabian leopards were actually captured in southern Oman and registered as Stag Book in 1985. Captive breeding was initiated in 1995 by Oman Mammal Breeding Center and operated at the regional level by the Arabian Peninsula. And they've been kind of managing the stud book there. 9 institutions have been participating in the breeding program and has kept 42 males, 23 females, and 3 unsexed leopards, of which 19 were wild caught. These captive leopards comprise 14 founders that have an unequal number of descendants. In 2016, they also had the fauna been transferred to a centre in Shigarao in the head of the conservation centre as well. And they've also been seen in a few zoos and things as well to try and help them. And there's even Arabian Leopard Day, and the Saudi county ministers declared February 10th as Arabian Leopard Day. It's an effort to protect the species and raise efforts about its conservation. In June 2023, the United Nations actually voted to adopt this resolution to officially designate it as an international day for these leopards. And this provides, a way to, provide funds and, support the conservation of these leopards. So yeah, really, really cool. Another really cool mod. Really, really cool one there. So that was done by Sky Polaris. But last and certainly not least, we've got another Great Cakes mod. We've got another eagle for today because, we love our eagles. We have got here, this is the Philippine eagles. So a really excited one. I'm really excited to talk about. So we've got here the Philippine eagle. So the Philippine eagle, or Pithecophage jeffreyi, also known as the monkey-eating eagle, or the Great Philippine Eagle, is a sadly critically endangered species of eagle in the family Apsiritae, which is endemic to the forests of the Philippines. And actually considered one of the largest of the extant eagles in terms of length and wing surface area, with only the Steller's eagle, sea eagle, and the harp eagle being larger in terms of weight and bulk. In terms of its names, it has numerous names in the Philippine language. These include the Angula, which is a Spanish loanword, all sorts of different really names for these guys. In terms of their kind of taxonomy, the first Europeans to study the species was John Whitehead in 1896, who observed the bird and whom Sylvain Juan kind of collected the first specimens a few weeks later. Upon scientific discovery, it was first called the monkey-eating eagle because the reports of the native of Bonga Samar actually thought it preyed exclusively on monkeys. And the genus name Pithecus, which means ape or monkey, and Phagus, which basically means the monkey eater. But later study reveals that they eat a lot more animals, such as large snakes, monitor lizards, culigos, and also large birds, such as hornbills. And this coupled the fact that the same name applied to the crown eagle in Central South America. It was called the Philippine eagle as well. A 1919 study as well looked at the nearest relative, suggested its closest relative was the harpy eagle, but in DNA suggests it's actually closely related to snake eagles, such as the Balaura, which we covered not too long ago. In terms of its description, Their nape, as you can see, is adorned with lots of beautiful brown feathers that are long and brown, and they form a shaggy mane-like crest. The eagle has a dark face and a creamy brown nape and crown, and the back of the Philippine eagle is dark brown, while the underside of the wings are white. The heavy legs are yellow with large, powerful dark claws, and the prominent high-arched deep beak is a bluish grey, as you can kind of see there. The eagle's eye are kind of a blue-grey as well, and juveniles are quite similar to the adults, except for the underparts feathers of pale fringes. A Philippine eagle is typically recorded at about 86 to 102 centimeters, about 2 foot 10 to 3.4 feet in total length. But a survey of specimens in some of the largest natural history collections in the world show they average about 95 centimeters, or just over 3 feet for males, and 105 or 3 foot 5 inches for females. Based on these measurements, they are the longest extant species of eagle, and average the female equates the maximum reported harpy eagle. The longest Philippine eagle reported anywhere, longest outside of the extinct Haas eagle, is a specimen the Field Museum of Natural History that was 112 centimeters and 3 feet 8 inches, but she was also kept in captivity and may not represent wild variation. So very, very long, big birds. The level of sexual dimorphism is not certain, but males are believed to be about typically 10% smaller than the females, and are supported by average length provided for males and females in one source. And like many other species of large eagle, the difference between adult females and males can exceed 20%. For adult eagles, the range is between 4.7 to 8 kilograms, or 10 to 17 pounds, while others have been found to average somewhat lower at between 4.5 kilograms, or 9.9 pounds for males, and about 6 kilograms, or 13 pounds for females. One male was actually found to have a weight of about 4.4 kilograms, or about 8 pounds. So quite big birds. And the Philippine eagle has a wingspan of between 184 to 220 centimeters, about 6 foot to about 7 foot 3. And the maximum recorded weight is actually surpassed by two other eagles, the harpy and the Steller sea eagle. But they are, considered one of the largest eagles, and they very have a very large bill that rivals the Steller sea eagle as the largest bill in eagles, and they have the longest legs of an eagle as well. So a lot of things for these guys as well. The most frequently heard noises from these eagles are loud, high-pitched whistles with inflections of pitch, and juveniles have been known to beg for food with high-pitched squeals. So these guys are endemic to the islands of the Philippines, which means they can only be found there, and they can be found on the four major islands: Eastern Luzon, Samar, Leyte, and Mindanao. The largest number of eagles reside in Mindanao, with about 82 to 233 breeding pairs, with only 6 pairs found in Samar, 2 on Leyte, and a few on Luzon, and they can be found in national parks. The eagles are typically found in diacarp or mid-mountain forests, particularly in steep areas with the elevation reaching up to about 1,800 meters, and an estimated 9,220 kilometers of old-growth forests remain in the bird's range. However, the total range is about 146,000 square kilometers. In terms of its ecology, evolution in the Philippines, without any other land predators, the eagle actually became the dominant apex predator, so it became the tiger of the Filipino forests. The Philippine eagle has a wide range of prey that includes birds, reptiles, and mammals, mainly civets and klugos. Each breeding pair actually requires a large home range to successfully raise a chick, and this makes the species quite vulnerable to deforestation. Earlier, the territories had been estimated to be about 100 square kilometers, or 39 square miles, but a study showed that the nearest distance between breeding pairs is about 13 kilometers on average, resulting in a circular plot of 103 kilometers, or 51 square miles. This species is quite fast and agile, resembling smaller hawks more than similar large birds of prey. And juveniles have actually been observed playing by gripping knot holes in trees with their talons and using their tails and wing for balance, inserting their heads into the tree cavities. Also, they have been known to attack inanimate objects for practice, as well as hang upside down to work on their balance. While the parents are not nearby where this occurs, they probably do not play a role in teaching the juvenile to hunt. In life expectancy, they do live quite a long time. They live for about 30 to 60 years, A captive eagle lived for about 41 years in Rome Zoo, it was already an adult when caught. And then the captive Philippine eagle lived for 46 years at the Philippine Eagle Center in Nevada City. However, wild birds are thought to live average shorter lives than wild birds. I mean, captive birds, which makes sense. Um, in terms of its diet, and that's probably one of the big things about them, the Philippine eagle was initially known as the Philippine monkey-eating eagle because it was believed to only be eating monkeys. But the only two monkeys living there is native monkeys there are the Philippine long-tailed macaque and the common long-tailed macaque. Both are subspecies of the crab-eating macaque that weigh between 4.7 and 8.3 kilograms in males and between 2.5 to 5.7 kilograms or 5.5 to 12.6 pounds. So 10 to 18 pounds for males and 5 to 12 pounds for females. And though Philippines do prey on these monkeys, they are opportunistic predators, and they take prey basically based on their local level and abundance and ease. The misconception may have come from the first examined specimens having bits of digested monkey in its stomach. Prey species or specimens found in eagle nests has ranged from small bats weighing 10 grams to a Philippine deer weighing 14 kilograms, or about 30 pounds. And the typical prey, or the primary prey, is usually tree squirrel-sized Philippine flying lemurs, or caligos, which make up 90% of their diet. However, primary prey species vary from island to island depending on variability, particularly in Luzon and Medallo, because these islands both have different faunas. For example, flying lemurs are the preferred prey for the eagles on Medallo, but they're absent on Luzon. The primary prey for eagles in Luzon is macaques, reptiles, and the northern Luzon giant cloud rat, which can weigh twice as much as flying lemurs at about 2 to 2.5 kilograms, or 4.4 to 5.5 pounds. In many regions, civets are also taken, which are mainly cat-sized, like the Asian palm civet, but occasionally Malay civets as well that are larger can be taken. Other mammalian prey includes flying squirrels, tree squirrels, flying foxes, rats, and mouse deer. Birds are taken as well, including large species of owls, hawks, and hornbills. Reptiles include snakes, which are mainly taken, like pit vipers as well have been taken. A breeding player actually delivered a Philippine cobra to the nest. Monitor lizards such as the marbled water monitors or the northern Sierra Madre forest monitors have been taken. And while most of their prey does consist of wild prey, they do capture domestic fowl, cats, young pigs, and small dogs. And they tend to use two hunting techniques. So one is still hunting, where they watch for prey actively by sitting motionally on a branch, and the other is perch hunting. They will kind of entail sporadically gliding from one perch to another, and when perch hunting, they often work their way gradually down from the canopy down to the branches. If not successful in finding prey in their initial foray, they fly up and circle back, kind of work down. Eagles and Medano have often find success using the latter method when hunting the flying lemurs, since they are nocturnal animals and try to use camouflage to protect themselves during the day. An eagle pair sometimes will hunt troops of monkeys cooperatively, with one perching nearby to distract the monkeys, allowing the other to swoop in from behind, hopefully unnoticed, to kill them. And since the native macaques are aggressive and often about the same size as the eagle, if not larger, it is particularly hazardous prey, and they've actually suffered from broken legs from these monkeys. In terms of reproduction, the breeding cycle of these large animals takes about 2 years. So it's quite interesting as well. The female will reach sexual maturity in about 5 years, and the male in about 7. Like most eagles, they are monogamous, and once paired, a couple will remain together for their lives. And if one dies, the remaining eagle will often search for a mate to replace the one lost. So they are quite, monogamous, they'll pair for life kind of thing. The beginning of courtship is signaled by nest building, and the eagle remains near its nest. Aerial displays are often play a major role in the courtship, but these displays including paired soaring over a nesting territory, the male chasing the female in diagonal dive, and mutual talon presentation, where the male will present his talons to the female's back, and she flips over mid-air to present her talons. Advertisement displays coupled with loud calling have been reported, and the willingness of an eagle to breed is displayed by the eagle bringing nest material to the bird's nest. And copulation will occur repeatedly both in the nest and on nearby perches, with the earliest courtship being reported in July. So breeding season is in July. Birds at different islands such as Mirando and Luzon, will breed at different ends of their range. The amount of rainfall and prey population affects this breeding season. Their nests are mainly built in emerging ditubercarp trees or tall trees with an open crown and primarily or disturbed forest. The nests are lined with green leaves and can be about 1.5 meters across. And the nest location is about 30 meters or even more off the ground, or about 98 feet. And as many other raptors, their nest will actually resemble a huge platform made of sticks. And the eggs frequently, the eagles will frequently reuse this nest for several different chicks. And between 8 to 10 days before the egg is laid, the female is afflicted with a condition known as egg lethargy. And during this time, she will not eat, drink much water, or hold her wings droopingly. And the female will typically lay one egg at typically at afternoon or at dusk, though occasionally two are reported. If this egg fails to hatch or the chick dies early, the parents are likely to lay another egg the following year. Copulation may take a few days after the egg is laid to enable another egg to be laid if the first one fails. So they're typically, pretty onto it. So if they lose their egg, they'll have another one. The egg is incubated for about 58 to 68 days, typically 62 days after being laid. And both sexes participate in the incubation, but the female does the majority of the work, including the day and all of the night. So the male will often be going off and doing his own thing. Also, as well, they feed the eaglet, and they also shelter the eaglet. And the parents have actually both sexes help to feed it, and will also observe taking turns shielding it from rain or sun until it's about 7 weeks old. The young eaglet also fledges at about 4 to 5 months old, and the earliest the eagle has been observed making a kill is 304 days after hatching. Both parents will take care of the eaglet for about 20 months, or unless the previous nesting attempt has failed, they can only breed only in alternative years. The Philippine eagle rivals only two other tropical eagles, such as the crown eagle and the harpy eagle, for the longest reproductive cycle or breeding cycle of any bird. And even nests have no predators other than humans, and even though nest predators such as palm civets and macaques likely avoid any area with regular prey activity, eagle activity, since they are their prey, so they want to avoid them at all costs. But yeah, time to get into their conservation. So they are sadly quite endangered. They are considered critically endangered. And the IUCN believes the population of Philippine eagles is between 180 to 500 eagles. In 2015 was estimated about 16 in the wild. So the primary threats for these eagles is deforestation through logging and expanding agriculture, with old growth forests being lost at a high rate, and most of these forests in the lowlands owned by logging companies. Mining, pollution, exposure to pesticides that affect breeding, and poaching are also quite major threats. Additionally, they are also caught in traps laid by local people for deer. Though this is no longer a major problem, the eagles' numbers were also reduced by being captured for zoos. The diminishing numbers of the Philippine eagle was first brought to the international attention to the noted Filipino ornithologist Dioscoro C. Rabar, who is director of Parks and Wildlife Office as well. It was also best known for crossing the Atlantic alone without stopping in 1937. He was fascinated by the eagle. As a representative of the World Wildlife Fund, he traveled to the Philippines many times to try and help persuade the government to protect these eagles. And in 1969, the monkey-eating eagle conservation program was started to help the species. And in 1992, the first Philippine eagle was hatched in captivity through artificial insemination. However, the first naturally bred egret was actually not hatched until 1999. The first captive red bird, though released into the wild, was released in 2004 to Medano. However, he was actually accidentally electrocuted in 2005. Another eagle, though, was also released in 2008, but was shot and eaten by a farmer. In 2015, the eagle was released after being treated for a gunshot wound. 2 months later, was also shot and killed. But killing the species, even though it sounds like happens a lot, it is punishable by 12 years in prison and heavy fines. The numbers have slowly dwindled over the decades to the current population between 180 to 600 eagles. The Philippine eagle sadly may no longer be found in the wild unless direct intervention is taken. With the Philippine Eagle Foundation in Davao City is one organization dedicated to protect these eagles and their habitat. With the Philippine Eagle Foundation successfully breeding Philippine eagles in captivity for over a decade and conducted the first experimental release of captive-bred eagles into the wild. And as of 2025, they have released 31 eagles in captivity, although breeding is slowed as recent, which is that their 30 chick was bred in 2016, 2021, and 2024. Unfortunately, the 29th and 30th chick has not made it to adulthood, and in 2025 they had a chick named Riley, who hatched and died on the 16th of April the same year with an unknown cause, or undisclosed cause. And this chick was quite significant because it was the first ever chick born through a natural pair, as all previous chicks were bred via artificial insemination. But ongoing research on behavior, ecology, and population dynamics are also underway. And populations, protected lands have been established protected species, although a large portion of the population now live in unprotected land. They've also tried to reintroduce them to a place in Letier. The Philippine Eagle Foundation decided to start a project to reintroduce them into Letier, where the species survives but may have been extirpated by the typhoon Haiyan and Yolanda in 2013, which devastated the forest, and there's been no sightings since then. June 2024, two released and non-paired eagles with tracking devices were released from Mindanao and were released there. They were released in the hopes they would form a pair, but this project faced significant setback when the male named Uzwag was actually found dead at sea. Researchers believe that the eagle got blown off course and drowned at sea, but as of October 2024, the female Kalisa was demented alive and hunting and able to fend for herself, so hopefully she finds a male, or they send a male for her. And they've actually been using them for diplomacy. In 2019, a pair of Philippine eagles, which is Geotherma, which was a 15-year-old male, and Samsberg, a 17-year-old female, were loaned to the Jurong Bird Park in Singapore. And these are part of conservation efforts for the species as they commemorate 50 years of fellowship between the Philippines and Singapore. And before the pair was shipped, they were given two specially printed passports dedicated to them, and the pair was scheduled to stay at Singapore for 10 years as part of the agreement. And the move marked an initiative to the government's Philippine Eagle Diplomacy Program. And as of 2024, Geothermica has died of a lung infection. Their body is now taxidermied in the National Museum. Your Sandsberg remains in Singapore at the new BirdLife Park that replaced the Jurong BirdLife Park. And despite the setback, they maintain that this breeding program will continue, as there'll be likely another possible mate will be loaned. And in August 2024, the Philippine Eagle Foundation launched the Philippine Eagle Geothermica's Gateway Program as tribute to the female who died of aspergillosis in Bird Paradise Mandy Wildlife Reserve in 2022. And his sculpture, or her sculpture, I think, 19-year-old Geothermica, what was it? Yeah, that's the male. A sculpture stands at the center of the new facility, where his taxidermy body is currently displayed in the National Museum of the Philippines. But yeah, these are quite an important animal, not just because, they're important for the ecosystem. There is a lot of folklore around them. They're considered a quite legendary bird. There's the Malala, which is a legendary bird inspired by the Philippine eagle, as well as they're considered one of the national symbols of the Philippines. As you mentioned, they're quite rare, quite big. So, they're a great animal to kind of be a mascot, especially for the Philippines. Which is quite cool. And in terms of conservation, there's about 50 of them kept in zoos in Europe, the United States, and Japan. The first was a female that arrived at London Zoo in 1909 and died there in February 1910. The majority arrived from zoos between 1947 to 1965, and the last outside of the Philippines died in 1988 in Antwerp Zoo, where it lived to 1964. And the first captive breeding was only really achieved in 1992 by the Philippine Eagle Foundation facility in Davao City, which bred them 31 times in 2025. So there are species that is kind of really struggling, but there is a lot of effort to really help them. And they're really cool species. I think they deserve all the help they can get. Really, really awesome animal. Really, really cool. So yeah, that was done by Great Cakes Mod, another really great eagle mod. Yeah, so I think this is a great place to end the video. I'm going to thank everyone. Thank you, Jay Aquatics, for your cichlids. Thank you, Nawala, for your remake of your guinea fowl, and Monsoon for your remake of your gawa. Thank you, Great Cakes, for both the Philippine Eagle, really, really awesome mod, and your Caliphyllus mod. Really cool to get some extinct animals some love. And Sky Polaris, good job with your Arabian Leopard. And, I've got a lot of mods coming from you and the next couple parts. So, yeah, I really, really, really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to hit the little bell icon to get notified about anything. So if you guys enjoyed this video, hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.